Hello, Julie here and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I'm sharing with you the layout I created for my design team challenge over at Mystical Scrapbooks. The challenge for December 2020 is to use 3 or more photos on your layout. The papers I'll be using on this layout are Studio 73 papers from the Mystique Nightwind Collection. To meet the requirements, I'm using 4 3" by 4" photos of my granddaughter. I'm going to start by trimming this Enchanted sheet down to 11.5 inches square. So that I can maintain as much of the pattern as possible, I take small amounts off of each edge. You can see off to the side there I've taken the centre out of a piece of cardstock. The cardstock name is Kookaburra, is the colour name, and it's a linen cardstock. I have another sheet of the Kookaburra cardstock and I'm going to cut that to 4¼ inches by 12 inches. This is what I'm going to sit my photos on. Once I've got that cardstock cut and my pattern paper and my frame, I'm going to use my Prima distressing tool and I'm going to distress the edges of all of those cardstocks and papers. I'll also use my black Kaiser ink cube to ink around all of the edges. To add some texture to my background, I'm using my Montmartre modelling paste and I'm mixing that with some Kaiser Craft paint called Dusty Pink. That's an acrylic paint, and because I'm trying to sort of match it up with that dusty pink in the pattern paper. I apply my mixture through this Kaiser Craft stencil, I'm not sure what it's called, and just randomly here and there, and then set that aside to dry. I've used an emery board and filed around each of my photos to give them a bit of a white border. My texture paste not quite dry yet, but I thought that while I was waiting for it I would use my Glimmer mist in Black Magic and splatter that onto the background, and also use my Do Crafts Artiste Spritzing ink in gold to add some gold splatters to the background. I'm not giving it a heavy coat, but just enough to sort of know that it's there. Now that I've finished with all the wet stuff on the background, I'm going to, while that is drying, I'm going to use double-sided tape to attach my photos to the strip of grey paper cardstock that I have already prepared. I'm going to position them so that my granddaughter is always sort of looking towards the centre of the page. I'm now going to attach my pattern background to my background frame. I'm going to use double-sided tape to do that. I'm going to try and centre that as best as possible. I'm going to take one of the other papers now. This one's called Floriana, and I'm going to trim that down to a strip of 5 inches, 5.5 inches I think I cut it, and then I'm going to tear both of the long edges. I'm going to tear the paper towards me so that I get that white edging to the pattern paper. Next step is to cut 2 strips of the Kookaburra cardstock, 3/4 inch by 12 inches, and distress the edges of that and then ink the edges as well. I've also inked the torn edges of the Floriana pattern paper, and I'm now going to attach those grey strips to the back of that paper so that I've got about 1/4 to 1/2 inch of the grey paper showing both above and below the pattern. I went ahead and added a piece of chipboard to the back of the photo strip. The photos are now attached to the decorative strip that goes behind them. To decorate the page or part of it, I'm going to use this Dusty Attic String Frames Small chipboard and this Duncan Brick Red acrylic paint. I'm trying to match that paper that I've got there that I'm going to be using on my layout. So I want the chipboard to be similar to that colour, so I'm going to just paint it with my acrylic paint. I have 3 pieces of chipboard that I'm going to paint with this acrylic paint called Charcoal. One is from Memory Maze and it says "You Stole My Heart," and the other 2 are from my stash and they are just plain hearts. While I'm waiting for the hearts to dry, I'm going to cut a strip of this Provo Craft paper. It's got a bit of a sheen to it. I'm going to cut a strip 1 inch wide by the 12 inches and I'm just going to cut that up into random lengths of about anything between 1.5 and 2.5 inches. I'm then going to cut dovetails into the ends of each of those little pieces. I plan on using these to form a cluster up in the top right hand corner of my layout. The edges of the banners get the same distressing treatment as all of the other papers on the layout. I wanted to mix those banners up with different colours, so I did exactly the same thing with a piece of the Kookaburra cardstock. To make my chipboard a bit more interesting, I used my Kaisercraft clear stamp called Chicken Wire and my Encore gold ink and just stamped over the painted surface. I cut the string panel in half because I want some coming out of the top of the photo panel and some coming from underneath at the bottom of the photo panel. I have a bit of a play around with the positioning of the pennants at the top of the layout. I'm happy with how that's looking at the moment, so I'm going to go ahead and use my glue to attach my string frames chipboard to my layout. The photo panel is then attached. I use my Aleene's Original Tacky Glue to attach my banners to the top right hand of the layout so that they overlap slightly on each one, and the heights and lengths of the banners are varying as well. The chipboard piece, that's Memory Maze chipboard piece that says "You Stole My Heart" is going to be my title, and you can see here that I'm playing around with that. I can't decide where I'm going to put it. I decided to go on with other jobs while I was thinking about that, so I trimmed off the banners at the top so that they were level with the top of my page. Then I distressed them a bit with my distressing tool and then applied a bit of ink onto them so that they fitted in with the rest of the page. I tried one of the chipboard hearts on top of the banners and decided that it needed something else before any sort of chipboard was placed on top of it. So I cut a piece of the pattern paper that was 1/2 inch wide and I trimmed that down to about 4 inches, and then I cut a piece of the grey cardstock 3/4 inch by 4 inches. I distressed the edges of both of these pieces of paper. Once that had been done, I used my glue to attach the pattern paper on top of the grey cardstock. I also used my stitched hearts die, the 2nd and 3rd sizes, to cut one from pattern paper and one from the grey cardstock, and I distressed and inked the edges of those as well. I attached the pattern paper heart on top of the grey cardstock heart and then attached the strip on top of the banners and then attached the hearts on top of the strip. This is where I had a change of heart. I was finding it very hard to get those chipboard shapes to stand out on my layout with that gold on it. So I went and painted over the top of them once again using that same charcoal. I still wanted to have a bit of gold on them, so I used the gold Spritzing ink to just make some splatters here and there, not too heavily. I add the smallest of the hearts to the little cluster up at the top, and then I try the title in a couple of places and the other heart in a couple of places, but decide where to put them and attach them to the layout. I decided to use my Glossy Accents and give all of those charcoal pieces of chipboard a coat so that that makes them beautifully glossy. You can see here that it's very milky when it goes on, but it does dry beautifully clear. I always wonder about that when I've applied the Glossy Accents. I wanted something down in the bottom left section of the layout, so I used some of the pennants that I had left over just to fill that gap up a little bit and tie the top to the bottom. I used my Uniball Eye Micro black pen to put faux stitching on all of the paper elements on the page. I used my Aleene's Original Tacky Glue to cover the grey heart in the top cluster, and then I sprinkled on Dress My Craft's Frosted Sugar Powder and let that dry before I tipped, or will let it set a bit, before I tipped the bulk of the frosted sugar powder off. The sugar powder is like little tiny glass beads, so it's not really a powder at all. And I just wanted to see what it would look like, and it looks really nice. I thought about doing all of the grey sections on the layout, like the banners actually, the grey banners, but then I thought that that would probably be too much, so I just stuck with the heart. That completes my layout today. I hope you'll pop over to Mystical Scrapbooks and check out the challenge. I'll put a link in the description box below. And if you're not already a subscriber, I would love it if you would subscribe to my channel. I enjoy creating these videos, and I hope you enjoy watching them. And I hope to see you when I create my next video. Thank you.